Do you believe that existing ESG regulations are fit for purpose? And do they do an adequate job of protecting members and sponsors' interests, be that a DB or DC pension fund or insurance group sponsor?
Two very separate questions there. In looking at the question of fit for purpose with the ESG regulations, we've not really had time to let them settle in. We have been evolving very, very quickly. And year by year, we've had increasing regulation about it. So it's really too early to tell. It's going in the right direction. I think there's no question about that. But actually, to say they're fit for purpose is a difficult one. I think the principle that we have to accept today is that institutional investors have a social duty, and that it's just not a question of investing for the sake of a return. It's investing for the sake of a return with a social conscience. And I think that is a critical aspect that we all have to accept within the institutional investment space.
Perfect.
When you then move on to thinking about do they do an adequate job for protecting members and sponsors' interests, it's a very big difference between DB and, in a way, I would shackle insurance sponsors with that, and DC, as the responsibility and the loss sits in different places. With a DB scheme, and to an extent with an insurance sponsor, a lot of the responsibility lies with the sponsor, with the DB company or the insurance company. When you look at a DC scheme, then the responsibility is very much with the individual member where they're investing. And I think that you can assume a degree of knowledge and a degree of sophistication for the DB investor and sponsoring employer for the trustees, which you can't accept or can't assume for the member in the DC scheme. And I think it's important that that is recognized. I think ESG is a very good opportunity to, how should I put it, enliven the interest of DC members and to get them really involved in their benefits and in their understanding to the why trustees, why pension schemes are going down this route.
Perfect. Thank you very much. In terms of the second question, I'll start now. Where do you believe further alignment between policymakers and investment leaders would be beneficial to clarify expectations of the regulator and help ease asset owner groups' incorporation of ESG factors into how they invest?
I have a bit of a problem here, because the nature of the question, the nature of the way things are going is towards prescription. And I don't believe prescription is good. I think that institutional investors must have the freedom to make their own decisions as to where they should be investing and what their relative merits are on financial and non-financial inputs within this. So that in terms of trying to align with the regulator, I believe that institutional investors must be looking to align with the social principles, and I'm using that in, or society principles within the broadest definition that comes within ESG. And I think that the regulator must be looking to promote that rather than looking to prescriptive investment requirements out of schemes. I think that the move towards climate reporting, etc., are right, but mustn't be overstressed, because that is actually taking one element out of the whole box, if you like, and that governance has long been an accepted requirement, and I think governance, to an extent, is ahead of the others. The E aspect is catching up. The S is a very big question. We look at all the problems over Boohoo. We look at all these aspects recently, and I think that if we're not careful, we lose sight of the total approach that must be there if we're going to move forward.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Moving on to the third question. What do you hope will be the outcome of COP26 negotiations, and what role does the institutional investment community need to play in ensuring national and international commitments are supported at a private investment level?
A difficult question. In terms of COP26, we're 5 years on from Paris. What we've got to be ensured is that all the international signatories, all the international bodies are held to account on the commitments on the commitments they've made, and that we really do move more towards a net zero element. And I think it's very difficult, because these conferences tend to provide a lot of sound bites, a lot of comments, a lot of sound, without actually the real substance coming out of it. And I think if we can get the participants to really confirm their commitment to the climate change requirements that we really need, and to the UN sustainable principles, then we will really be moving on. But the proof is in the pudding, and as yet there's very little to show in terms of positive responses for positive results. The second part of the question is how the investment community needs to play in ensuring the commitments. I think that's a difficult one. I think that we have a role to play. We need to make sure that our views are heard, that they understand that the investment community increasingly sees the dangers of not taking action, and that the investment community wants to move the story forward, and that whilst, yes, we can selectively move on the investment front, the real effort has to come from the top. Nationally, we have to see real positive commitment, real positive movement at a governmental level.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And moving on to the final fourth question. What can delegates gain from being in attendance at the Institutional ESG Investment Summit where the issue of alignment between policymakers and institutional investors on the setting of ESG rules will be discussed.
Again, I would in part make it two questions. Firstly, what can attendees at the conference or the summit get out of it? They can discuss, they can bring themselves up to date with how institutional investors are thinking today about ESG investment, what importance they're putting on it, how they see that influencing their decisions, influencing their motivations as we go forward. And I think this is very critical that sadly the pandemic has removed a lot of the networking opportunities to really people face to face and to discuss these issues and to decide how we can best develop them going forward. So I think that's a very important consideration. I think I'm looking forward to it. We all, to an extent, operate in our own little bubbles. And I want to hear what other schemes are doing. I want to hear what the thinking is, how we move forward. Yeah, okay, as a scheme, one of my schemes, we are looking at moving towards more active ESG involvement. How common is that? Is that where schemes are looking to go? So I see that as a very important commitment in terms of the summit. And I think also this question of the alignment between policymakers and institutional investors is a very important one. I think we need a bit of a breather. The last 2 to 3 years has been driven fairly strongly by the regulators, by the Department of Work and Pensions in the UK to actually move the ESG agenda on. And I welcome that, and it's positive. And I think, generally speaking, the majority of schemes have responded well. We have new targets on the climate change reporting. We need to digest this. We need to agree the right ways forward. We need to talk about it. We need to way forward. We need to comply with what's happening. So in that way, I think alignment should be when we've had a chance to absorb where we are, then discussing with the regulator, with the DWP, etc., how we can best move forward from there.